throughout America and the world through education, grants, and so forth. And that's kind of been my thing. I grew up here in the States and spent quite a bit of time in Lithuania, and just wanted to find something that was a little more non-political, non-religious, and this was my my place. Okay.
Labas, I am Vitas Aukstuolis, and if maybe we don't mind, I prepared a little presentation to kind of kick us off getting started here.
Oh, great. Okay, I think I might have to make you a host to do that. Okay. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay. And then you'll just change it back once you're done. Okay, that's you're the host now, so you have all the power. You have the wheel.
Nice. Excellent. All right. Oh, can you all see a picture of Capitol Hill?
Yes.
Perfect. Sassities de brole. I hope you all can forgive me, but after 4 long years, I like a single moment in politics where I do not talk about Trump. So at you. I'd like to share a fun connection to Biden instead. In 2012, I was what they call a super volunteer for the Obama campaign while a sophomore at Ohio State. So our Ohio State team wanted to be the first in line to vote for the re-election of Barack Obama and Joe Biden. Naturally, like every college student does, we had a sleepover at the Board of Elections the night before. There was a whole thing with tents, media, and hot food, which we loved as students. And as a volunteer, I wanted to make sure everyone was taken care of. There's one gentleman standing off in the corner that seemed like he could use a friendly face to talk to. Plus, I'd seen him around. He was some higher up guy with the Obama campaign. We chat about, I don't even know what. Apparently this guy, Greg, he's a big shot. Fast forward, he became the chief of staff to Joe Biden in the Obama White House. So you can imagine my surprise a few years later when I visited DC for spring break, walking down the street with my friend, and whoa, that's Greg. I say hi, and he remembered me. He hands me his card, and it's an official White House business card. It's pretty cool. I hang on to the card for dear life and finally get a chance to reach out to Greg directly. I take my chance on October 31st, 2016, just a couple days before the last election. And I sent out a petition on behalf of a taping guy asking for new public support of NATO from Biden. He replies, acknowledges the petition, and passes it off, quote, to the right place. And it now says these now ominous words, quote, we just need to get this election over with ASAP. Oops. A couple of years ago, Greg had an office of 4 below mine, same building where I took this picture from, and I stepped out in an elevator just after the one where he and Biden stepped off from. I was looking at Biden from the back. He looked a little too older than I was expecting, but he had this nice crisp blue suit, carrying his own bag and the bag of his assistant, and he was just acknowledging everyone around him. Then Greg, he spots me, and we both know that we have our work cut out for us to protect what we can from Trump. And at least finally now, I think we have a President Joe that we know he'll stand consistently behind NATO. So I would like to talk about what we can do as Lithuanian to influence Congress. After all, we're citizens of the most powerful country in the world, and it is the greatest protector of Lietuva. I think we have a duty to make sure that Congress stays on the side of Lietuva, and these are some of the tools we have. First, voting. For everyone that was involved with Lithuanian Americans and Friends for Joe, y'all did absolutely amazing work. But I want to dive into the dirtier side of politics. Politicians are actively rigging democracy against us through the process of gerrymandering. 2020 looks like it could be some of the worst rigging this country has ever seen. So 2020 is a census year, which means that politicians have a chance to draw political maps, otherwise known as gerrymandering. These politicians can draw political maps by picking voters instead of allowing voters to pick their politicians. And gerrymandering is every 10 years when the census is released, most states will sit down and draw the districts for politicians. This is done by the party in power in each state. Legend goes that this guy, John Boehner, former Speaker of the House, rented out a hotel room in Cincinnati with several other Republicans and map makers, and nobody was allowed to leave the room for the weekend until they drew out new maps for Ohio. When he was finished, The Ohio legislature and Ohio's members of Congress would permanently skew for the Republican Party, as you can see with the contrast of the red between left and right charts, even though the public generally voted about 50-50 Democrat, Republican. This gerrymandering directly fueled the rise of the Tea Party, which grew so big they got in a fight with Boehner himself. Boehner had to abruptly resign and he left politics to go lobby for marijuana legalization. So here we go again in 2020, and maps are being redrawn again. This time, I have evidence that there's this gerrymandering. It's going to be far more dramatic than we've ever seen before. Remember, states are the ones drawing political maps. Since 1860, which was when the Civil War broke out, and this is all data I have, states have never come close to this level of extremism as we have now that you see on your screen. When a party wins the House, Senate, and governor's office, it's like winning the game Monopoly, but it's called a trifecta. Trifecta means you can do whatever you want and you presumably feel like you can listen to your voters less because you can redraw the maps to favor your party. But this inadvertently opens the door to anti-establishment groups to win seats in Congress, aka the Tea Party and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's wing. And this is the section where voters are supposed to have influence, but we're seeing that greatly diminish. So, with gerrymandered districts and the highest number of trifectas ever, politicians, they do not feel right now that they have the same pressure to listen to us. So what options do we have? We've tried protesting, we were loud, but I wonder what kind of pressure certain politicians felt from that. A lot of you might remember the massive phone calls and letter campaigns to, quote, stop the skinny repeal of the Affordable Care Act. Phone lines literally maxed out at Capitol Hill and you couldn't even send a phone call. But at least we got this little gem from John McCain after the vote. Let's see if it'll play. I love that video. Oh. And also, so that's what phone calls could do. And then giving money is another option. But what we saw this year is that over $7 billion was spent congressional races this year. And so if we're going to be spending money, it has to be spent strategically. So, shoot. Elections are rigged against us. Politicians can be jerks and they don't have to listen to protesters all the time. And phone calls can maybe make a difference if they're done right. What do we have left? We meet directly with Congress. This is a picture that I took with Representative Šimkus, where we had Lithuanian Americans, and we met directly with Šimkus. This guy, this happy guy in the corner. We also have Baltic Advocacy Days, where we organize direct meetings with congressional staff who are advocating for our issues. A couple pictures from these. That's right. These last 2 years, we had Baltic Advocacy Day in DC, where we knocked down the doors in Congress and forced them to listen to us for over 100 meetings. All right, we didn't force anyone, but we respectfully requested to have these meetings, and just about every office gladly accepted. And it worked, big time. So much that right now the Estonian, Latvian, and Lithuanian embassies are reaching out to us, and they want a digital Baltic Advocacy Week, the week of Vasario 16. So that's February 14th to 19th. And we are gladly obliging with this. This year, it'll be digital, so we can all safely participate. We know that when politicians are rigging democracy, we have to fight back with direct grassroots advocacy. This is kind of a new term. Since this strategy works, I came up with this idea and I built the first comprehensive direct grassroots advocacy platform I've seen. It's called Baltivist.com, and right now it is built specifically for us Baltic Americans. It's only $25 a year too. It's relatively new, which means I'm always thinking of ways to make it more user-friendly. Soon, I'll be creating a power map of Congress that'll show how Baltic issues may interact with Congress and what I think the rise of AOC and her wing for politics might mean. It'll also have helpful tools to prepare for our digital Baltic Advocacy Week, which again, that's Suvaziavimas, February 14th to 19th. Right now, we're looking for volunteers to help organize these Zoom meetings with members of Congress and their staff. If you'd like to help, please reach me at Vitas@Baltivist.com. Or if you'd like to just participate and join Baltivist.com, you can reach me at the same email, or sign up at Baltivist.com. As the living, I think we have to punch way above our weight if we want our issues to stay relevant. We've done this with our allies like Carl and the Atlantic Council and our Lithuanian, Latvian, and Estonian allies, and I see no reason for us to stop punching above our weight. So I hope all of you are going to participate in Digital Advocacy Week and get all your friends to join too. Ačiū labai.
Vita, ačiū, and thank you for sharing your personal story. Everybody else knows, Vitas and I served together on Bendruomenės Public Affairs Committee. Bendruomenė, like JAVLJS is a nonprofit corporation, so we're prohibited in these specific organizations from working on electoral politics, working for candidates. What Bendruomenės Public Affairs Committee, what we do as JAVLJS as well, is we are allowed to work on issues of importance to our communities. So we can educate our community members, we can educate those who are our attendees on issues of importance. So that's part of what that discussion about Belarus was about. And we can work on issues together. So like the ones that were mentioned during the Belarus discussion. So Vita, we appreciate you bringing in that perspective, also talking about Baltivist and Baltic Advocacy Day, which we hope will continue to be a priority of JAVLJS. Just additional ways that we can express our opinions and our voice, no matter what party you're from. But I think we all have something in common together that we care about Lietuva. So that's why we're all here today. So Robertas, when you're ready, could you explain your connection to the Lietuvybė and your organization?
Why, thank you very much. First of all, I want to ask, I'm actually at a Lithuanian event right now, and I stepped out into a gym. Are you getting a lot of feedback or echo?
Sounds okay from here.
It's okay from here. Okay, so I don't have any PowerPoint presented, but I just wanted to first of all make a point that if you're a young Lithuanian American, the area is fertile right now for your talents. If you are artistically inclined, whether it's photography, whether it's the performing arts, sculpting, painting, whatever the case may be, there is a place for you in the Lithuanian community. If you are politically inclined, and we heard a presentation on that, there's a place for you in the Lithuanian community. And I'll just add that, you know, at times throughout our history, Lithuanians have been very sophisticated in how they approached the American political structure, especially during the World War II era. The entire policy of non-recognition, where the United States did not legally recognize the annexation of Lithuania by the Soviet Union, that would not have happened had sophisticated Lithuanian American activists and business people not approached the Roosevelt administration and the State Department at that time to be able to make that a reality. And in 1 month following the occupation, that non-recognition policy was already in place. And it wasn't just window dressing. There were actual financial and legal consequences, positive consequences for Lietuviai because of that action. But again, those were Lithuanian Americans who were doing this. So whatever your talents are, you are needed and you are wanted. You know, my own journey was a little bit different. So I grew up in Chicago. I was in Skautai. I went to Šeštadieninė mokykla. I did all of that. And then I found my niche in research and in scholarship. So here in Chicago, we have the Lithuanian Research Center, Lituanistikos Tyrimo Centras, which has grown into the largest research and academic institution outside of Lietuva. And so these are individuals who are doing papers for college. They're doing research projects or a thesis for a master's degree or a PhD dissertation. We also have students coming in from Lietuva, from all over the United States, and literally from all over the world. Many of the people who use our facilities and use our materials are not Lithuanian. In fact, on 2 occasions, we've had scholars, professors in from Japan. These are Japanese professors who teach Baltic history to their students, and so we've had Japanese scholars who have come to the Lithuanian Research Center. So it's something that's esoteric. You know, these are for people kind of geeks like myself who like to dig around in dusty old stacks and libraries, old archives and documents, periodicals, and books. You know, some of our material goes back to the, some of our artifacts go back to the 18th century. And so, you know, that's kind of a unique niche. And I remember as I got started on this as a high school student and then later on in college, it was looked upon kind of strangely. People weren't aware of archives. People weren't, you know, aware of what we did. But gradually, you know, through what I think is good work and also what I think is some good public relations, we've been able to get the message out there. And this isn't just a commercial for the Lithuanian Research Center. There are other archives, other bibliotekos, libraries, archyvai that are around. I mean, just in Chicago, we have the Balzakas Museum, then we have the archives of the Ateitininkai and the Skautai. There are archives in Cleveland and in Baltimore. Also in Toronto, you know, looking north of the border. And there are also communities like Detroit, for instance, or Omaha, that I feel should start some sort of a repository for their history. And so that's kind of the where I want to conclude, in that these materials, these books, these archives, these documents are saved, they are preserved, and they're used not just for the sake of scholarship, but also for the sake of being able to preserve our unique history and culture. And by unique, I mean Lithuanian American history. You know, we often hear about Lietuva, and that's fine. That's where our blood ultimately comes from if we weren't born there. But Lietuvybė isn't just about a particular territory in Europe. It's about Lietuviai everywhere, and Lithuanian Americans have a history that goes back also to the 1700s, back to Alexander Kuršius in New York, at that time New Amsterdam. This event that I'm at right now is actually an American Legion event for the Don Varnas Post. This was a Lithuanian American Army officer who was killed in World War II. And so there was a slideshow about the history of the post. And so Lithuanian Americans have this history that goes back over 200 years in this country. So I want to preserve not just Lithuanian culture through these archives, but specifically Lithuanian American culture, something that we can be proud of. Thank you.
Robert, I thank you so much for that wonderful analysis, as well as, you know, letting us know about the different archives. We do have a couple of questions. Let me just scroll here. One of the questions that came in was if you could share whether some of the Lithuanian museums and archives, which ones have done, you know, kind of a bigger job of pivoting online, or which like Lithuanian organizations or museums are kind of like working on moving their archives online. And are we, like, is the Lithuanian Research and Studies Center going to have an online archive available to others, and things like, and what goes into the logistics of that?
So yeah, you know, for many years, the objective was preservation and use of these materials. Now, the long-term objective that's going to outlive me, this is going to be something continuous, is going to be digitization, getting things online, and you know, eventually as technology changes, we'll be using technology that doesn't even exist yet. So this is a moving target, but this is a target that we have to keep our eyes on. You know, I have to say, you know, overall, Lithuanian archives, you know, haven't digitized as much as we can, and it's not for a lack of wanting to. It's very often a lack of resources, both the person power as well as the financial resources to be able to do so. So I can tell you, for instance, our colleagues here in Chicago, the Balzakas Museum of Lithuanian Culture, they have digitized some of their artifacts, especially relative to the Lithuanian immigrant experience. So they've begun that, and I know that they want to carry that out. Over at the Lithuanian Research Center, digitization is part of our strategic plan, and we've already started that specifically for Lithuanian American periodicals. So we have a website, lithuanianresearch.org, but there's another related website that we manage called, that's spauda.org, S-P-A-U-D-A, spauda.org. And if you go to spauda.org, you can begin finding some of these Lithuanian newspapers. For instance, all of Draugas has been digitized, and that is available. We're working on Darbininkas, we're working on Dirva. And so little by little, we've been getting the funding to do this. So our first foray into this is periodicals, and it's not just PDFs, but these are searchable. So you can type in a keyword, a key phrase for a name, an organization, and then that's going to come up. That work is only going to continue.
So we're going to also have all these links available because we record all of our webinars, so they will be available in a few days. So don't worry, guys, like we'll have all the links up and available for that. And I know, Roberta, that archives are always in need of volunteers. So, you know, maybe, you know, giving us contact information if people are interested in volunteering to preserve the Lithuanian heritage and culture and important pieces of that, that would be great.
You know what, you can, well, our email, and this is being recorded, if you send an email to info@lithuanianresearch.org, somebody will be in touch with you. Our army of volunteers is actually growing since we purchased our building, our second facility in Lamont. We have volunteers there all the time, and I'll say Rima and her husband have also been volunteers. They helped out with the move. Rima and her mother have also worked on our material. So thank you. Volunteers are always welcome.
Yeah, and I'm a board member as well. So, you know, it's a great organization to be a part of. I absolutely 100% recommend for any of you. There's archives in Cleveland, archives in Chicago, Toronto has wonderful archives. So if you think you have an archive center in your area, I would highly recommend that you check it out. Tauras, I wanted to kind of ask a couple of questions about some of the Lithuanian organizations that would be, in your opinion, good for Lithuanian jaunimas to join or look into. Like what places can jaunimas make the most difference, or at least, you know, kind of discover their heritage if that's what they're looking for?
Oh, good question. It depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for heritage, I would say like this organization, Jaunimo Sąjunga. Then there's also Ateitininkai, Skautai, and so forth, the more traditional organizations. But at the same time nowadays, there's all these networking organizations that have popped up, especially for us city dwellers. I live in Chicago, and there's plenty of young professional Lithuanian organizations that are mainly networking, but that is a great way to connect. And not just connect from a business standpoint, but also culturally. And if you're in the arts, or if you're an attorney or a business person, it's a great network because you're all going to need each other at some point throughout your career. You know, I'm a photographer, I do advertising. I need to talk to people outside of my creative sphere just to keep going. And so I think and these are all new things that are popping up, which are fantastic. And I think there's things that the research center, great place to go volunteer. I think they have, you'll meet a lot of great people, and and it's fascinating to hear about the history and just see it live, old books or old documents, films, videos, anything. So just keep your eyes out, always communicate. If you're not sure, just send an email to somebody, send an email even to us or to anybody, to the archive center. And people are relatively friendly and will always try to provide some information to help you find something new. Also, use things like, if you're a student, try to do an internship in Lithuania. That will open your eyes to something. If you've never been there, or have only been there on vacation, you really have not experienced it. But if you go as an intern, you're going to live there and work there for a bit at some office or organization. And that will open your eyes to a whole different understanding of your culture and your heritage. So I would always keep stuff like that in mind. And just a little bit of a backtrack to the foundation work, things like the new building in Lamont for the archives and so forth. You know, this is what we do at the foundation. We actually, we help and we give out grants for all this kind of stuff. And that's the cool thing about the foundation is it's also a place where there's all kinds of people. We have lawyers, architects, financiers, bankers, and we all come together and volunteer and try to help out the whole community. And we give out over $1 million a year in community grants and scholarships. So, and I mean, I just think you got to just kind of be out there. Don't be scared to talk to people, and just be aggressive. And you'll find there's so much out there to do. I mean, there really is. And I think it's much more than when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I think it was very traditional here in the States of heritage, and now it's non-traditional. And that's what helped me in a sense. I spent a lot of time overseas in Lithuania, and just here now, just there's so many different groups. There's a fantastic museum at the Art Museum in Lamont, you know, and Asta Zimklis runs it, and she's doing a fine job. There's things happening there. There's things for kids now that were never available when I was a kid. You know, if you have a family or a young child, oh my, it's just fantastic. And I just think you got to keep your eyes open and just ask questions. Ask older people, you know, who you think are interesting, because there are interesting older people out there. That's all I guess that's about all I can tell you right now.
Well, absolutely. And certainly thank you for sharing your interests in particular with how you found your lane within the Autoviva. And that's why we wanted to bring the three of you together for your unique perspectives and your unique organizations. Could you talk a little bit more, maybe Tauras, let's continue with you and then Robertas, about what you've done with your specific organization in developing it, trying to get more people involved?
I can quickly go with that. That's something we're working with right now. It's a little difficult with the foundation, mainly because we are a money-oriented organization where people become members. And I recommend anyone to become a member. It's only $100. And actually, you're a voting member at that point. And most of our money comes from membership or people leave it to us in their wills. They leave us money or they start foundations. Like they want to give out money to people doing work with children or something and things like that. So, you know, it's difficult. I think we have a new committee we started in our board of directors to try to bring in new people, especially younger people. And it's tricky, because I know when I was in my 20s, I'd be like, huh? You know, honestly, it doesn't really click, because it's a little dry. But I think there's a way to explain it to people, and then they kind of find it a little more interesting. And honestly, it's just a matter of, I think now with our scholarships that we give out, I think a lot of people are starting to understand the importance of it. Since we're right now going to do scholarships next week, I think, is we're going to be reviewing. And a lot of people applying for scholarships also become members, which is fantastic. And that way we can keep tracking, because we have your emails, we have other information, we keep on sending you stuff. And we would love for people that maybe, if they want to volunteer or become a little more help around the office and see what's happening, give us an email or give us a call. We're always looking for people. But I do understand, like I said, the foundation is not your standard place for a young person to be hanging out, and I understand that it'll be a little more difficult for us. But I think we should give it a chance.
So I guess I'll then pick up now. So I wanted to mention, first of all, in terms of being able to develop, whether it's our organization or any organization, Tauras just mentioned the importance of partnership. And you know, the building that the Lithuanian Research Center purchased, we could not have purchased it without the financial assistance, the loan that the Lithuanian Foundation gave us. And that's something, you know, where also I've seen a difference from when I was a younger person versus now. When I was a younger person, it seemed the Lithuanian organizations were much more involved in turf battles. There would be conflicts. In fact, there was, well, I mean, it's no secret, Lietuvių bendruomenė at one point split up into two organizations in the 1970s and on into the early 1980s. Unfortunately, that ended. And I think we need to work together as partners in general across organizations because our numbers are fewer. And so we need to be able to leverage our resources and all the various kinds of people that are in these organizations, the business people, the attorneys, the photographers, the architects, whoever the artists, whoever the case is. So just, you know, as Tauras mentioned with a foundation, you know, something like the research center doesn't necessarily sound very attractive to younger people. Frankly, it doesn't sound attractive to a lot of older people either. So, you know, you kind of have to have a bent for that. But what I've discovered is in getting the word out and in talking about it, people get interested in that. You know, I'll speak about the research center and I'll mention some sort of historical trivia, and somebody will come up to me and they'll say, wow, you know, I didn't know this. And somebody else might mention, you know, my grandfather's correspondence is in a box and it's in Lithuanian and we don't read it. Could we give it to you to preserve? And I say yeah. So we get that word out. And yeah, you know, just talk to somebody, get in there and do it. There was a question that flashed as I was finishing my presentation. I saw somebody said that they live in Los Angeles and they don't have an archive, but it might be interesting to have something like that, to come across these older things. You know, you don't need a permit or a license to start an archive, any kind of repository. So in Los Angeles or any other city, just get the word out. You know, to find a place somewhere where you can start, you know, bringing together people's documents, organizational documents, letters, photographs, you know, things like that. Books, periodicals, and all of a sudden you've got it, and it's growing. Don't be afraid to try something new. Don't be afraid to try from zero, and see where you go.
Okay. Can I really quickly? Can I just say something? And to his point, actually, it's so important to especially let's say in LA where there is no archive. If someone would open one, that'd be fantastic. And there's a reason for this. Just for someone like me who's in the arts, there has been so much wonderful artwork that's been put in a dumpster because someone's grandparents died and the kids don't really know what it is. And that's understandable. But I think if there's an archive somewhere to put something, at least that work, books, artwork, paintings, whatever, can be given to an archivist who can then make the decision if it's worthy or not. Because there's so many things that unfortunately have ended up, actually I found some stuff in Chicago at a thrift store one time and I was stunned what I found. And it's actually worth money. I ended up selling it at an auction in Lithuania for a big chunk of money. And that's the problem, I think. And I think that's why archives are important, not just for financial reasons, but just for historical. And, you know, there's things I know maybe I threw away of my grandparents that I didn't understand. So I think we need to be a little more aware and be thankful there are people who are spending time doing archives.
I know generally right now we're talking about kind of ways to get involved. And one of the things that I've just been so excited about to watch recently is so many groups that are being led by incredible youth. I'm thinking right now, I'm excited about Maria Chiveta, you taking over LJS, and Yona, you two did a wonderful job, I think, bringing in people. There is just fresh blood being brought in. I know it's exciting. I have two cousins who grew up not really speaking Lithuanian, and then they started getting involved with either a technika or their dance groups and their song groups. And right now they're completely plugged in with everything. And one of them even he's fluent in Lithuanian right now, and it's amazing. And there are so many groups and there's such incredible leadership. So I think we're talking about a lot about all these groups that are around, and I think it's also fun to just like see people that have been rising in leadership, people like Rima and Maria and Jonas, and kind of tag along and see what they're doing and see whatever their events they're putting up, and otherwise can get involved and follow them.
We're always happy to answer questions about organizations. But Vita, I wanted to ask you about your website, Baltivist, and what it actually entails for people that don't know about it. And then like how to get involved in things like Baltic Advocacy Day, because that's always a big deal. So maybe if you could talk about that for a couple minutes, that'd be great.
Absolutely, yeah. And now I'm thinking about it, I want to tell everyone, I think I showed my partisan stripes earlier, but Baltic Advocacy Day and Baltivist.com are absolutely bipartisan websites. So I've always worked very closely with Republicans. I have very close Republican friends. And luckily for Baltic issues, our issues are absolutely bipartisan. I know, Luca, I think you were talking about you being from Omaha. Right now, the new chair of the House Baltic Caucus, which is a really important caucus in Congress. This is kind of where a lot of our policy issues come from, or they're kind of driving force behind it. The new chair is from Omaha, and he is a Republican, Don Bacon. We are all really excited about him winning his election and then becoming chair. But Baltivist.com, so this platform, it's something that it's relatively new. But what it is, I'm trying to get a way for us to have this advanced level of grassroots engagement. So I've been watching a lot of wonderful people doing phone calls and protests and stuff, and it's all amazing. But this is a way for us, we're a smaller group, and if you don't have the numbers, is there a way for us to be more targeted? And so the answer is, to me, is to do these advocacy days. So the one that's gonna be coming up in February, this is a way for us to be digitally on Zoom with people who will be making decisions about the future of the Baltics, and decisions that will be keeping the Baltics free. And we'll have a chance to have conversations about what our priorities are. And a lot of this, I know during our last two advocacy days, a lot of people came in, they had never done much kind of political activism, and they came in. But then they came away absolutely loving the day. So these are events where we're going to do full training for these types of events, so that you can be as comfortable as you need to be for these actual meetings with members of Congress or their staff.
Okay, great. And then please make sure you drop the link for us for Baltivist, so we can post. We will post it later, but drop the link, and then we'll look forward to updates on Baltic Advocacy Day, which I'm also working on. So yes, that would be great. Okay, I think Jonas, do we have any other questions at this point?
Sure. I don't see any additional questions in the chat, so maybe let's do maybe each of you, let's go around the horn, and if you have maybe one or two tips for our attendees to get involved, or maybe just closing remarks for about a minute or so each.
I just quickly will say thank you for listening to my whatever I talk about, because half the time I have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you have, check out our website, lithuanianfoundation.org, and there's a lot of information on there. It's actually probably a little too much, but you'll see what we do, because if you're not very familiar, but it's amazing. We do a lot of stuff from all levels, just everything. And if you want to get involved with something that's, just different, drop us a line. We would love to hear from you. Thank you.
And it's the same thing with us. Our website is lithuanianresearch.org. You can check out what we do. We also have a Facebook page as well. You can find us there. Facebook probably has more information, because we actually post old photographs, facsimiles of documents, things of that nature, with interesting historical background, or just as an example of the kinds of things that we have. through the website and Facebook page. You can reach info@lithuanianresearch.org. Whether you have a question about what we do or what other people do, you're interested in any facet of Lithuanian community, just holler. And if we don't know, we'll find somebody who does.
And I just want to say, I was also watching earlier when all of you were giving the presentations for the election. It is so exciting to see so many people who want to be so involved and who are great people getting involved. And a lot of faces where I don't think I've met a lot of you. I am so excited to see that. And I'm also willing to be friends with any of you. So please feel free to reach out to me at Vitas@baltivist.com. I'm also on Facebook. And also, I definitely encourage you all to like Baltivist on Facebook if you want to stay posted about Advocacy Day, or to reach out directly to me. And I really encourage you all to also sign up on Baltivist.com. All right, and Ačiū labai, this has been great.
Ačiū tau. Robertas, did you have anything to add?
Nope, I said my finale.
All right, good. It looked like you had something to add for a second. Okay, well, I think that will end our segment for this webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. Briefly, we're going to have Vitas Suvaziavimas, the president of Bendruomenė, congratulate the new board, as well as Kovas Kulbis, the representative from PLJS. So we will let them do that. Former panelists, you are free to either stay or leave, but I will turn off your videos at this point. Ačiū.
Ačiū.